Hey, good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday. We're back on I Could Be Wrong. As usual, Justin's with me. Good evening, bro. How you doing?
Oh, excuse me. I'm
Uh,
good. I'm good.
I caught you mid-drink there. My bad. Obviously, we're getting closer and closer to the NFL regular season, and of course, we're excited as usual. But let's go ahead and talk about some preseason football first. Um,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and kick off our first topic with this one. What's your biggest takeaway from week one of the preseason?
My biggest takeaway from week one, I've watched a lot of tape, actually, with that NFL Plus. It's not paid advertisement, people. But I watched a lot of the replays, and my biggest takeaway actually is how much more fluid and organized the Jacksonville Jaguars are from head to toe. And it actually showed on the field. Trevor Lawrence played, I think, pretty well, if not really well. Didn't turn the ball over, was really efficient. There was a couple throws, I'm sure he wish he would have back, but they actually came right out of the gates. Got a deep ball to Zay Jones, who actually they targeted really, really heavily in the game. So I'm going to be paying a bit of attention to him. Opposite of Christian Kirk, he was another one of their wide receiver acquisitions. And you know, going from Urban Meyer and that whole saga to Doug Peterson with the championship pedigree and just knows how to run an organization. Honestly, you can see it. You can definitely see it on the field, and I'm actually really excited to see how well Trevor Lawrence plays. And the Jaguars could have a couple of fantasy steals on their roster this year in what's I'm anticipating to be a much better offense than they were last year. Defense will probably be better as well. As a result of that, just overall. So that was my biggest takeaway of week one of the preseason is that the Jaguars look like a much better organization, a much better team. Their product is a lot better, and I'll be excited to turn on a Jaguars game this year, opposed to going, oh god, what kind of story is going to be in the news this week about the.
Yeah, yeah. I like that one. I think it's not hard to be better than they were last year. That's for sure. Like you
Yeah,
mentioned, Urban Meyer pretty much tore the entire organization apart in the short time he was there. But I think they are going to be able to turn it around with Doug Peterson. I like a couple of the guys that you mentioned. I obviously one of the guys we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Travis Etienne. I think he's going to be a big contributor in probably a fantasy steal for somebody who can, hopefully land them on their roster. I would say for me, my biggest takeaway is that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be in big trouble if they can't fix their penalty issues. Obviously with the talent they lost at wide receiver with Amari leaving, um, I think they lost another receiver. They've got injury to Michael Gallup. They have uncertainty on their offensive line. They really can't afford to have as many self-inflicted wounds as they had last year. I don't anticipate their defense is going to be turning the ball over at the clip that they were last year. That was just an unbelievable turnover ratio that they had last year. I mean, I would be
yeah,
really, really surprised to see if they do that again this year. So they're not going to be able to cover up for a lot of the penalties that they commit. And I know it's only preseason, but 17 penalties is a lot even for a preseason game. And honestly, I think Mike McCarthy could find himself on the hot seat pretty quickly if they don't get it turned around. And we may be seeing Sean Payton take over at some. I think that's going to happen anyways, but I think it may happen sooner rather than later if they can't turn around, the penalty issues and start playing with some discipline and focus. So that would be my biggest takeaway from week one of the preseason is the Dallas Cowboys still have the same issues they had to end the season.
yeah. Actually, Stephen A. he gave a pretty hilarious take on that the other day, and I would agree with that. It's not my biggest takeaway, but it's definitely a big takeaway from week one of the preseason because you've had a whole off season to go in and correct the mistakes. And I know everyone could go, oh well, it's just week one of the preseason. Well, what about all of last year, and the preseason last year? It's not something that's new. It's a recurring issue. So it's not just week one of the preseason. This is like week 20 of this happening,
Yeah.
whether it be in regular season, preseason, training camp. In the game against the Niners, actually, they had 14 turnovers in that playoff game. Um, so, had they had less turnovers, they may have won the
But
game.
penalties, 14 penalties.
Penalties,
Yeah.
yes, not turnovers.
14
Gosh,
turnovers.
14
Goodness
turnovers.
gracious.
That must be some kind of record.
That'd be
Yeah,
amazing.
so
But yeah.
14 penalties in the game against the Niners. So yeah, I mean, reduce the penalties. Maybe they can make it a little further in the playoffs. I mean, they obviously have the talent to make the playoffs, but once you get there, it's stuff like that can really, really, take away from what you did in the regular season. To be honest,
Yep.
hopefully they don't clean it up, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'm rooting for the same thing. I hope it's status quo for them for a while.
Yeah,
All right, cool. I think we had a couple good ones there. I agree with your Jacksonville takeaway. I think that they're gonna turn some heads. I'm not sure they're gonna win a ton of games this year. I think they're gonna be way more competitive, and they're gonna surprise some people with how competitive they are, and they're gonna win some games that they probably shouldn't win, and really start to turn the corner. I think with the new regime in there, so that'll be interesting to see.
I would take the over on 4 wins.
Oh yeah, I think they'll win more than four.
Yeah, more than 4 games. I mean, that would be a success compared to last year, definitely.
Yep, for sure. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and shift gears here. I want to go ahead and take a moment and talk about these two guys on the screen here, Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. So obviously, both of them are, I mean, phenomenal talents. And on any given Sunday throughout the season, they could be considered the best player on the planet, depending on what you're looking
Yeah,
for. So
yeah,
um, in the meantime, though, however, both guys did lose their number one wideout from last year in the offseason via trade, with Devontae Adams going to the Las Vegas Raiders, and Tyreek Hill ending up with the Miami Dolphins. So, which one of these quarterbacks do you think will miss their former number one wide receiver the most?
I have to really give this one some thought because, on one hand, you've got Mahomes who lost the Cheetah, probably is, I don't know if it was his best bud or best bud A. Him and Kelsey, it could have been like best bud A and best bud B. But who knows? So the situations are somewhat similar, but somewhat different. I say it like that because with Mahomes, he loses Tyreek, obviously a stud in the league. He's a superstar. Um, Big play after big play that he made for the Chiefs and with Mahomes. But he goes, Mahomes still has Kelsey, who's also really top of his position. I mean, it's hard to argue anyone better at his position, right? They don't have really much for veteran receivers that's left over after the departure of Tyreek Hill. They just lost Valdez Scantling, so there's a pretty good argument that it could be Mahomes. Um, but as of right now, I'm actually gonna say Rodgers. I'm gonna say Rodgers gonna miss Adams more than Mahomes will miss Hill, and the reason why is because there's just a lack of proven ability. Ultimately, whether it be at the tight end or receiver position, just to throw the ball to. Um, the running backs are definitely going to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. I think the other day he said, they could both catch 50 passes realistically out of the backfield this season. And that wouldn't come as a shock to me either. But nonetheless, I just think from overall, just the receivers room, and I would consider tight ends a part of that. People to throw the ball to. I would have to say that maybe later in the season this could change because some of those young receivers in Green Bay are coming up, and I'm going to be talking about one of them here soon. But right now it's got to be Rodgers in my opinion because I think Mahomes he's got a little bit of talent still. You know, they picked up Juju, who's an experienced veteran.
Yep.
MVS did get hurt. They've got Kelsey still. Andy Reid, great coach. You know, so I'm gonna go with Rodgers here.
Okay. All right. All right. I see you made some valid points there. I'm going to actually go the opposite. I'm going to say that Patrick Mahomes is going to miss Tyreek Hill more than Aaron Rodgers will miss Devontae Adams. With that being said, though, I'm going to go ahead and say that Patrick Mahomes is still going to have a better season statistically than Aaron Rodgers, aside from interceptions, because we all know how good Aaron Rodgers is at avoiding throwing interceptions.
Oh yeah, he just throws that ball away.
Yeah, but I think Mahomes, I think he's really going to miss that security in the back of his mind that when those off schedule plays happen, those plays break down, he's got the cheat out there running around where he's just got to find them and throw the ball to him. I think that's what he's going to miss the most. So when you talk about who's going to miss their wide receiver the most, I think that's going to be Mahomes. But I think at the end of the day, Mahomes is, like you said, he's still got probably a better supporting cast with Travis Kelsey, Juju Smith-Schuster, those running backs. Obviously, no knock on LaFleur. He's had a hell of a start to his career. But Andy Reid is probably one of the top two or three play callers in all of football right now, and probably one of the top five play callers in all of football ever. He's really good, obviously, and he's put Patrick Mahomes in a lot of good situations. So I think at the end of the day, Mahomes will end up figuring it out. It's gonna force him to get better. It's gonna force him to trust the offense more, rely more on timing, rely more on reading the defense, his pre-snap reads and things of that nature. I think it's really going to make him a better quarterback, not having Tyreek Hill, but he is going to miss him quite a bit. I think that Aaron Rodgers, he already is so cerebral when he approaches the game, and is just so prone to not making mistakes and staying on schedule that really he's going to miss Devontae Adams. But I mean, if you think about it, Devontae Adams wasn't Devontae Adams when he first got to Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers kind of helped him turn into that guy, and I think he's going to do that with some of these other guys. So I think as long as he can get them on the same page, like you talked about, running the right routes, hanging onto the ball, not making drops, I think that his memory is going to be a lot shorter than Patrick Mahomes when it comes to, I missed the old guy, I missed the guy I used to have.
Yeah, it could go either way. Honestly, this was really tough one for me because you know Rogers is great at executing. He didn't actually. There was games where Devontae Adams, not many games, but there were some games where he played without Adams, and he didn't play bad.
Yeah,
You know, he put up some good numbers in those games.
yeah,
I don't remember
yeah. The game
the
against
exact numbers,
Arizona,
but
the game against Arizona, they were missing, I think, their top three wide receivers, and he came out. They
because of
came out and
COVID.
yeah, and they came out and torched them. I know it
Yeah,
was a short week. It was like a Thursday game, but still, it was a short week for both teams.
yeah.
And Green Bay was on the road. They came here to Arizona and really laid it on them. So, yeah, again, I think that he's just, as long as those guys are on the same page as far as their route running and things like that, I think he's going to find success with whoever they put out there. He's kind of like Tom Brady in that essence. Tom Brady has really only played, before he got to Tampa Bay, he only played with one really elite wide receiver, and that was Randy Moss for a short period of
Andy.
time. But he still put up tremendous numbers with whoever they put out there. And I think Aaron
Yeah,
Rodgers obviously is the same type of quarterback in that essence.
yeah. It's going to take some time, but I agree with you.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's keep it moving here. Next up, this is a topic I've been wanting to kind of get into with you for a few days here, about a week or so. Just popped into my mind when the rankings came out, and I saw Alabama at number one, and then right after that, they were showing on ESPN. I was watching; they were showing on ESPN. They were talking about Tua, and it just made me think about when Tua took Jalen Hurts' job in the national championship game and led
Mhm.
Alabama to the comeback win, and then ended up taking his job the next season. So I wanted to debate this with you. Now that both these guys have been in the league for a couple of years, which one would you take today?
This is another tough one right here. But, this is the NFL. It isn't college. And I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts here. I just think he's he's got a better skill set. He's got the more of a quarterback frame, I guess you could say, bit more accurate on the deep ball. Tua is actually super, super accurate overall. Uh, but I do believe that Jalen's a bit more accurate on deep ball. Jalen is, in my opinion, also a bit more apt to use his legs and his athleticism a little bit more than Tua. You don't see Tua running too much. Um, Jalen will get on the move a little bit, and he'll use his legs to pick up a first down here and there. So I'm going to go with Hurts. Honestly, I just feel like, especially this year, I think he's going to have a breakout year. Eagles will probably win that division and make the playoffs. Um, Tua's got a first year head coach, whom I believe is going to have a great career. So there's a lot of unknowns. He's got Tyreek, which is going to be great. Um, Turnovers is what I'd like to see Tua cut down on. As accurate as he is, the passes he does miss. I remember a drive specifically in Week 1 last year. He takes them all the way down the field, takes Miami all the way down the field, doesn't miss a single pass until they get in the red zone, throws a pass to the end zone, picked off. And it's passes like that the incompletions. A lot of those are interceptions for him. He does fumble the ball a bit too, so like to see him clean up some turnovers. Um, Again, at the end of the year, I may feel a little bit differently, but right now
Okay. Yeah. I agree that this was a tough one. When I initially thought about it, I was like, "Oh, this is an easy decision for me." Then I started thinking about it, and really, both of these guys, have two different types of skill sets. Like you said, Tua is very accurate. He completes roughly 2/3 of his passes. He doesn't take the deep ball as much though, so obviously that makes a big difference. I think if you're talking about if we're gonna start a team like a real team, right, and these are our two choices, I think it's a tougher choice for me. If we're talking about like let's say fantasy football though, I think this is an easy choice. I would go with Jalen Hurts in a
oh
heartbeat
yeah, all day.
because because of the running dynamic that he brings with his legs. Of course, he's scored way more touchdowns with his legs than Tua has. So they both started. Oh, Jalen Hurts has started 19 games in his career. Tua started 21. Jalen Hurts is 9-10. Tua is 13-8. So obviously Tua has the advantage as far as the record. But when Jalen Hurts was the full-time starter in his first year, he took his team to the playoffs. Now, I think he's poised to take a big step forward. You know me, I've been hyping him up for the last couple of years since he came into the league. I think he's going to be, a great player when it's all said and done. I think for him though to continue to evolve, out of the nine, here's an interesting stat. Out of the 9 games that they won last year, none of them were against teams that made the playoffs. So I think the next step for Jalen Hurts and really that young Philadelphia Eagles team overall is to now start to string together and stack wins against winning teams, quality
Quality team.
teams, build that confidence up so that way when they get into the playoffs, they're more confident. Obviously, it's more competitive, things of that nature. So again, I think that's the next step for him. I agree with you. I would take him over Tua at this point, but the book is still being written. That could definitely all change. Tyreek Hill does add a new dimension to it, and maybe Tua starts throwing the ball, downfield more because he's got that burner. I think honestly, the guy who's going to benefit the most with Tyreek Hill going to Miami, believe it or not, is going to be Waddle. I think he's going to fly. He's going to love playing with Tyreek Hill and having Tyreek draw that double coverage and being able to find himself in a lot of one-on-one matches. So,
Yeah.
but I know that's a different story. But I would definitely go with Hurts in this situation. I thought about it for a good while. Again, Tua is very accurate. He averages more yards passing. But when you look at the added dimension as far as running that Jalen Hurts provides, I would go with him just because of the way the NFL is going. And and that added ability down in the red zone to avoid having to throw those interceptions and run the ball in for touchdowns or instead. So that's why I would go with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Tua has, I will say this, this year with McDaniels coming in as his head coach, he's going to have, this is the best thing that could have happened for him. And this is definitely not a knock on Brian Flores, because I actually like Brian Flores as coach. I think he actually did great in Miami. And then to hear that they wanted him to tank, again, speculation. But the guy won games,
Yep.
and he won games with Tua. So, Tua's going to have a big opportunity here with McDaniels, who's more of an offensive-minded coach. He's going to bring probably some really good play calling over, like Shanahan in San Francisco. So I think Tua is really, really going to benefit from that extra knowledge of someone who can really see things from offensive perspective and work with him on those types of things, which Flores, again, wasn't really known for that. But he was still a great coach.
Yeah, I agree. I think either one of these guys, if you're looking for a young quarterback, I mean, you really, either one of these guys have a solid future in front of them. It just depends on, coaching and the pieces around them on whether they can really maximize their potential. All right, let's go ahead and jump in here to Justin's fantasy football risers after week 1 of the preseason. So he is our resident fantasy football expert. I see how I threw that in there. I made you an expert.
Expert, huh?
Yep. All right. So he gave me 3 names of 3 guys he thinks are on the rise after preseason week 1, whether they played or not, based off of what happened on the field. So break it down for us.
Yeah. These are just 3 names actually. After week 1, I've got more than a handful of guys on my radar that are rising right now. A lot of people probably have similar names, but for sake of just not share my secrets with a fantasy competition here on this podcast episode, I'm going to keep those other names to myself. Yeah, so Brian Robinson. Listen, Antonio Gibson comes in first series, second series. First series doesn't really do anything. Gets carried, not really efficient. Second series comes in, they go and punt the ball. They come in another series, boom, fumble. Same old Antonio Gibson, fumbling the ball, fumbling issues just keep plaguing him. I will say this, dude was a quarter inch from the ground, but he still fumbled it. It was just one of those things. Defender made a heck of a play on the ball, punched it out as he's going to the ground. But again, you just, when you're plagued by those things, you're plagued by those things. So Brian Robinson. I think it's actually fair to note that Gibson did come in another series after the fumble. It wasn't until after that series that Brian Robinson comes in with the first stringers. He gets 6 carries, 26 yards, so he's averaged over 4 yards a carry. He also gets 2 receptions for 15 yards, all with the first stringers. Then Gibson actually comes back in the game with the second stringers in that game. So it was pretty interesting to see that. But when you watch the tape, and again, I watched a lot of tape. I went back, I watched a lot of, replayed a lot of these games, did the condensed versions. And when you watch Brian Robinson, I think Brian Robinson is exactly what the Commanders were hoping they were going to get with Antonio Gibson. Someone who can just hit the hole, take every inch of grass that he can get moving forward. And that's what Brian Robinson did. He ran between the tackles very, very well, picked up chunk yards, 4 or 5 yards when he needed it. And that's the difference, and of course he held on to the ball. So we'll see how that goes. And being is that, he comes from Alabama. Alabama has a pretty good history of developing some good running backs. Of course, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. He was actually their second string running back when he got drafted. Mark Ingram. There you go. That's another one. So I believe that Brian Robinson's going to come in. It may take a little bit of time, but he's certainly rising right now. It's worth watching. You want to put him on your watch list, definitely. He has taken first team reps since, not all first team reps, but he has taken reps with the first team. And Antonio Gibson, has been spotted taking reps with special teams. So that doesn't really bode well for him. Now, my guy, we were talking about Green Bay receivers a little bit earlier, and how they're going to impact Rodgers or not impact Rodgers and the Packers this year. Well, Romeo Dobbs, I guess I always want to say Dubes, and I think someone, I'm gonna hit him up on Twitter and see if I can get his real name. But
Everybody
I'll go
on
with
TV is
Dobbs because
calling him
everyone
Dobbs.
says Dobbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna call him Dobbs for now, but I'm gonna see if I can get an answer on Twitter. Anyways, Romeo Dobbs, Aaron Rodgers gave him hype. We did an episode where I talked about him as someone to look out for because of that hype and because of the training camp hype. And in the game against the 49ers, he came out. He got 7 targets. He had 3 receptions, 45 receiving yards, and a touchdown. And actually, he got open plenty of times. I went back and rewatched. You and I watched the game live, and then I actually went back and rewatched. And a couple plays before his touchdown, he got open. He shook the defender. The ball was just overthrown, so he could have easily had a touchdown before the one he caught. So he was crisp, ran his routes well. There was some news out of Green Bay's camp, with Rodgers saying the young receivers need to stop dropping balls. Dobbs being one of those receivers, but reports thereafter came out saying that the receivers responded. They all said, they're just taking it in stride. They know Rodgers just wants them to get better. I think Dobbs is going to have a much, much better season than people think. Watson still, he just barely getting back into practice, was deemed healthy. And the fact that Dobbs was, it was a point of emphasis to make him a part of the game plan. I think that's going to carry over into the season. So he's a guy on my watch list. He's rising real fast. He's actually rising faster than a lot of these guys. I got Dameon Pierce. Anyone who's in fantasy knows that this guy's rising. He's trending right now. He came in the game after Marlon Mack took a few carries and was really inefficient. All he did was run the ball 5 times for 49 yards, averaged a nice little 9.8 yards per carry. He's been spotted taking first team reps since then. And, with the team that's rebuilding, let's just be honest, with the team that's rebuilding, at the end of the day, it's in your best interest to start guys like this who you just drafted, you invested your draft picks in. You're going to go out and try and win games, but you're paying this guy on a rookie contract. You're a team who's rebuilding. You're going to want to see what you got. Yeah, sure, you just signed Marlon Mack in free agency, but I think the NFL knows what Marlon Mack brings. He had a 1,000-yard season. He's had a couple of injuries, and he couldn't get close to winning his starting job back in Indianapolis. So, I mean, they know what they get. Dameon Pierce also, just based on the tape, he looked good. He was actually very explosive. He was quick, decisive. I like watching him run. In fact, he reminded me a little bit of James Robinson.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my comparison for him.
Those
are a few of my risers.
I like it. I agree with you. Obviously, in Houston, they're probably going to go with the youth movement and play some of their younger guys, get them some experience, see what they have, see if those draft picks paid off or not. I agree with you regarding Dobbs. I think he's poised to have a good season as long as he can stay in Aaron Rodgers' good graces and stop dropping the ball. He had a nice game against San Francisco in the preseason. He had a couple drops in that game as well. One of them actually turned into an interception after the 49ers challenged to play. I didn't even realize that he was the receiver on that play until I rewatched it as well. So I think as long as he can solve that problem with drops, I think he's got a good chance to have a really good season. I want to throw a name out there, and I don't think this guy's gonna be a top 5, top 10 fantasy player or anything like that. I
Yeah.
think that if Najee Harris gets hurt, though, I do think the Pittsburgh Steelers have a very solid guy in Anthony McFarland. I watched their game last week as well, and he looked really good when he was out there. I know, again, obviously it's preseason, so you can't put too much into it. But I think if you're looking for somebody in case of injury or something of that nature, or just some guy that maybe will burst on the scene, give you a couple plays here and there, I think that Anthony McFarland for the Pittsburgh Steelers could be one of those guys as well. So, again, I know fantasy football is more of your realm, but I really liked what I saw from him last week, and I think that he's got a chance to factor in at some point this season.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I mean, McFarland is someone I'm watching closely. I do have Najee as one of my keepers in a different league than you and I are in. So, I'm watching that Pittsburgh backfield pretty closely. He did have a really stellar game the other day, but there's a report out today. Actually, their other running back, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I was actually going to do a little research on tomorrow, saying he's actually moved up the depth chart too.
Oh wow,
They're looking at having him as the second running back on the depth chart. But who knows? It's
yeah,
just I didn't actually see him play last week. But again, I'm gonna go back and watch some of that tape and see. But I like McFarland. He actually has some good hands. And he's pretty quick.
yeah.
He's pretty freaking fast.
He looked pretty good to me last week. So again, it's
Yeah.
preseason, so don't want to put too much into it, but I would say based off what I saw, he was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I like him.
All right, so those are the risers. Let's go ahead and talk about your faders. Who you fading after week one of the preseason?
Well, I mean, I'm moving up Brian Robinson. I got to fade Antonio Gibson. And honestly, I had Gibson fading a little bit even before this preseason game. This was just kind of like the thing that made me go, well, you know what, man? I just I actually have liked Antonio Gibson for the last 2 seasons. I've been really high on him, just waiting for that breakout. People are talking about, oh, he could be the next CMC and this and that, and you buy it for 1 year, you buy it for 2 years, and you know, here in year three, and I'm like, nah, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it, and especially not after that week one debacle, and then reports out of camp of them in the special teams. I mean, usually you don't have your starting running back
No.
running with special teams, so that doesn't bode well for Gibson. And even with the touches he did get, he wasn't very efficient at all. So fumbling issues just keep going. He was benched, special teams. I mean, he's in the doghouse. Unless something miraculous happens, he's really going to be running back by committee. He's still going to get his touches, I think. I mean, he's a good, talented football player, but there's Brian Robinson brings a different element that they want, and they want that ball to be ran between tackles downhill. Gibson just doesn't give him that. He gets out there and he's cutting, he's trying to get outside, he's loose with the ball when he does that too. So I've got him fading. Fade Gibson. Don't take him at his ADP currently. I might even drop him 2 rounds from where he's
Wow.
currently being drafted. I know that a lot of people wouldn't, but there's better running backs. There's actually running backs in later rounds. I would take Damian Pierce, whose ADP is not even 15, 16 round. I would take Damian Pierce at this point over Antonio Gibson, whose ADP is like right in the fourth, fifth round. So when you think about that,
That's
neither one of
interesting.
them are great offenses. Neither one of them are great offenses. Gibson's going to be full running back by committee. There might be running back by committee in Houston, but Pierce is the guy they just drafted. All they've got on the roster is Marlon Mack and some other scrub I don't even know the name of. So I would take Damian Pierce over Gibson at this point. Um, Cleveland RBs, man, I feel bad for these guys. Kareem Hunt don't even want to be in Cleveland.
Wow.
They don't even know. They say Brissett's going to be quarterback. There's rumors that they might trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. We just found out today that Deshaun Watson's going to be suspended for 11 games. Preseason game number one Their starting center gets hurt. He's gone for the year. Um, man, Browns RBs, their receivers aren't great. They got Amari Cooper. Outside of that, their receivers actually dropped. After watching the tape, Watson didn't play great, but there was also a couple of passes that hit receivers like right here, and they just dropped
Yeah.
them. So with that said, stack boxes all day. I mean, if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm stacking the box against Cleveland Browns more often than not, and I'm gonna make them beat me with their quarterback and their passing game. That's really the bottom line of that. I love Nick Chubb. I love Nick Chubb. I love Kareem Hunt, but I just don't think that Brissett's not as good as Baker Mayfield, and even with Baker Mayfield last year being unhealthy, Chubb didn't have a great season. He wasn't healthy for a little bit. Hunt, I mean, he missed some games too, so it'll be interesting to see. I just think they're fading because of the situation they're in. That whole organization's a dumpster fire. This was literally the most Browns thing that could have happened.
Yep. Yeah.
They panicked. They panicked on Baker Mayfield. That's what they did.
They did.
They should have kept Mayfield.
Honestly, I think that's what they probably should have done. I understand, wanting to get Deshaun Watson because he's much better than Baker Mayfield. Let's just call it what it is. However, at the same time, with his legal issues going on, knowing he was probably going to be suspended, knowing it was most likely going to be a significant suspension, I probably would have avoided, going after him, and I'm glad that the 49ers did, because otherwise they'd be in that situation right now, trying to figure out what they're going to do. So I agree with you. I still like Nick Chubb. I think that he's still going to be a producer, but I agree with you.
Like him.
I think he is probably not going to have as good of a season as he probably would have if they had their number one quarterback, obviously, for the entire year.
You've got to fade him.
Yep.
You've got to fade him from where he's at right now. Don't fade him a ton, but you've got to fade him. And it sucks because the guy didn't even play in the game. Like there's no negative news surrounding him.
Exactly.
It just has to do with all the things that are going on with the organization and everything like that. And losing your starting center is not. It's not something you can easily replace. I mean, starting centers don't just grow on trees.
Very true. Fantasy football is so much about the supporting cast that you have around you.
That's right.
To be able for those guys to be able to produce, obviously, and it's just as much a team sport as the actual game on the field. So yeah, I think he's definitely going to be hurt by everything that's gone on with them this offseason.
Yeah, and then my last one here. I love Debo. I'm a Niners fan through and through. I bleed red and gold. This is not a result of Debo, but after seeing Trey Lance, just being able to scan the field, also use his legs, the way he just operated. Danny Gray, I love the dude. I think the 49ers have developed a receiver group now where they don't need Debo Samuel to be the guy. They don't need one guy to be the guy. They don't need George Kittle to be the guy. Like 2017, 2018, even 2019, there's a few receivers that we had drafted that just didn't pan out. Like we couldn't land a receiver to say we're like, I mean, you can even go back like 2010, I think we drafted Crabtree. He was decent. He was good at best. 2 years after that, we went after, gosh, I can't. He was out of Illinois.
Been a lot of guys that we went after that just didn't work out. I agree with you.
Yeah, I looked at earlier. Yeah, 100%. This dude was out of Illinois. Jenkins, AJ Jenkins.
Yeah.
And we took him early in the draft. He didn't pan out. Nonetheless, I mean, guys like Dante Pettis, Trent Taylor, recent picks, just receiver never worked out. But then go 2020. Well, even in 2019, because that's when we got Debo.
That's
So
when we got Debo. Yeah.
2019, 2020, we got Jawan Jennings, who's really starting to, you know, come into his own. 21, Ayuk, um, or 2020 was Ayuk.
Yeah. Yeah. Both.
Um,
Yeah.
and then this year, we go and draft Danny Gray, whom I really like. So now I believe we have a receiving core that just they're all going to complement each other. They're all going to see a lot of targets. There's a lot of mouths to feed now. So I believe that with the combination of all the added weapons, the literal rise of Brandon Ayuk throughout training camp, just the chemistry he's already developed with Trey Lance while Debo was holding out, getting his contract done. Ayuk's not in the doghouse to start the year because people don't even remember. They got to kind of got to think back. Like if Ayuk hadn't started the year in the doghouse last year, how would that have impacted Debo's numbers
Yeah.
possibly?
Well,
And
he got
again,
hurt in the preseason. Remember,
yeah,
he got hurt, like a hamstring injury or something, I think. And
yeah,
then he struggled when he came back, and that's what got him in the doghouse. So yeah, you're right. Obviously, had he not gotten hurt, I think that he was having a great off season, a great training camp. He probably
yeah,
would have taken that momentum right into the season, and definitely would have taken away from some of Debo's production for sure.
yeah. So just a combination of all that, and again, no fault of Debo's, of course, but he's just not going to need to be used in the fashion that he was used last year. We have plenty of weapons. Danny Gray. Here's one of my other risers, Danny Gray. Uh, so I'll just throw this up there, and the reason why is because Trey Lance's arm is built for that deep ball.
Yeah,
Um, you saw it. You saw it. They took a couple of shots actually against the Packers, and then in the joint practice the other day, Danny Gray again. So Danny Gray caught the long pass against Packers first string DB,
yep,
and in the practice the other day, the joint practice with the Vikings, he burned Patrick Peterson, and Trey Lance just hit him deep for a would-be touchdown. So I think that's going to be a big staple of the offense. He's the fastest receiver they got. He's got good hands. I'm super stoked. So all in all, I think the 49ers receivers, you're going to get a lot of flex potential out of
yeah.
that. Wide receiver two, flex potential. Probably won't find a wide receiver one in that receiver group as much as everyone would like to think that Debo is going to be. I don't think there's going to be a fantasy wide receiver one in that group.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely see that. I hope it doesn't happen because I predicted Debo's going to be one of my top five fantasy uh,
I
wideouts,
did too.
but
Things changed.
that was before. That was before,
Yeah.
obviously, they got into training camp, and we saw how Ayuk and Trey Lance have their chemistry going. Obviously, he's building chemistry with Danny Gray. I think Debo obviously is still going to be the lead dog, and probably get most of the touches. But I think those other guys are definitely going to hold their own and take some of that target share away from them for sure. And then don't forget,
It's going to be.
you still got George Kittle,
Yeah.
doing his thing too. So
Mouths to feed, man. It's going to
definitely,
be it. We've got so many offenses. I'm excited about the Niners offense this year. I'm super excited. Like our defense has been stellar for years.
yeah,
These last few years, our offense should, as long as Lance is healthy, and I'm just knock on wood here. Um, man, our offense can go to a whole new level this
yeah.
year. So I'm super super excited from what I'm seeing on film, everything I'm hearing in training camp. But for the sake of this show, Debo is fading.
All right, I got you. I'm gonna throw one out there. I don't have any stats or anything like that. I'm just telling you that it's gonna happen because it has happened every single year of his career. Um, Zeke Elliott, fade him now, fade him now. I'm telling you, he is. You talk about stacked box. You're about to that the Cowboys are about to see a stacked box all day long for about 17 weeks. They have their like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about my takeaway from the preseason. Their offensive line, it's not the same offensive line that it was when he came into the league his first couple of years. He may be in phenomenal shape. He may be a workout warrior, but I'm telling you, running backs, that's the one position that once they wear down and that production goes down, it almost never, ever, ever turns around. And I anticipate that he's going to continue to decline. And by the end of the season, Tony Pollard will be the number one running back for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me the other day, and I at first was like, but the more and more I hear out of camp and just beat writers and reports, I'm fading into in fantasy football. I mean, I believe his career in Dallas is fading, to be honest with you. Pollard he's more athletic. He's not as hard of a runner as Zeke is, but he's definitely more athletic than Ezekiel Elliott is. So yeah, I mean, you could absolutely be right. I'm fading him. I actually have done a couple of mock drafts. I've got a draft coming up, and every time I get to a specific round, I'm not going to say for specific purposes because viewers that I'm drafting with will take some stuff here. But I get to him and I go, man, I want to take him, but lately I've just been picking guys around him because there's some guys around him that are just better value. They're gonna they're on better teams. They're gonna see more opportunities. So yeah, I would agree with that. I'm fading Zeke too. I've got to fade him. Fade him a round or two. If he's available a couple rounds after you.
Yeah.
But his ADP right now in redraft is like third round. So
Wow.
I mean, I'd probably go in the fourth round.
It sounds like Lucky agrees with you.
Yeah, it sounds like dogs agree with me.
Yeah. So here, you mentioned something, and I agree with you. Tony Pollard's not as hard of a runner as Zeke, but he's just as effective because he's better on the outside. He can bounce it outside. He's more shifty. He's still a very tough guy to bring down. When you watch him run, he runs hard. He's not built like Zeke for sure. I will give you that. And I will say that the one area where Zeke is head and shoulders above Tony Pollard is his pass protection. So that might factor into it. But I think really when it boils down to it, when it comes down to catches, attempts as far as running, all of that stuff, by the end of the season, Tony Pollard's going to be the lead dog in the Cowboys backfield. That's just a feeling that I have based on the way Zeke's career has gone. And like you said, I think that this is probably his last year in Dallas, no matter what kind of year he has. I think this is his last year in Dallas. And you know how teams think when they got a guy that's probably on his way out, it's time for the young guy to get in there and get his reps and get his mojo going. So that's just my opinion on it. So I'm fading him. Fade him.
Fade him.
All right. That is all we have for this round of I Could Be Wrong. As always, thanks for watching. We hope that you continue to do so anytime we put something out. Please do us a favor, leave a comment, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers, tell everybody. Be on the lookout for more content throughout the week. And as always, to finish us off, please be kind, even to Cowboys fans.
Yeah, just not the Cowboys.